Hello, I'm Scott Markus, coming back to talk about my favorite haunted filming locations. Last year we started a top 10 countdown. This is locations around Los Angeles that are known for being a filming location, but also have some pretty interesting ghost stories too. And for October, let's celebrate that. Last year we did number 10 up through number 6, picking up where we left off, doing the top 5. And let me tell you, these last 5 are all exceptional locations, both celebrated for their place in film history and lots of great stories behind them. This particular installment, fittingly, is brought to you by the Dark Matters Film Festival, the first ever. So if you are a fan of creating genre stories or a fan of watching genre stories, you'll want to stick around to the end to hear more. I'm so excited to kick this back off with one of my favorite places in all of Hollywood. And there's a lot of places that could be on that list for me, but the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, easily the most haunted place in all of Hollywood, in my opinion. And there's so many great stories up and down Hollywood Boulevard. But like any good ghost story, you have to start with the history, and talk about just being rich in Hollywood history. It was founded by Louis B. Mayer, Sid Grauman, Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, the biggest power heavy hitters of the 1920s. And of course, Grauman's Chinese Theater right across the street. Opened in 1927, it made its mark in Hollywood history really quickly as being the home of the first ever Academy Awards ceremony in 1929. The movie Wings was the best picture. It was more of an industry dinner. The awards were actually announced in advance, so there was no surprise over who was going to win what award. And you would just go there and have a nice dinner, pick up your trophies. The ceremony itself was maybe 10 to 15 minutes long, not the big elaborate to-do it is today that it's grown into. And it was the one and only time the Academy Awards were held at the Roosevelt Hotel. And I love finding beloved places as they appear in film. And for researching this video, I'm pretty sure I found the very first time the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel was ever depicted on film. It was just a couple years after it opened in a 1930 film called Showgirl in Hollywood.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, you are on one of the most famous streets in the world, the thoroughfare of motion picture stars, Hollywood Boulevard. On the right, ladies and gentlemen, you see the famous Roosevelt Hotel, patronized by the elite of the motion picture stars.
And I just love how it's depicted from the second deck of a double-decker bus tour. Yes, apparently they had them back in the 1930s as well, as alive today as they were back then. Also, you gotta love the ingenuity of old filmmaking, because you have a shot, just the camera going down Hollywood Boulevard, but then that dissolves into a rear projection of the actors in front of that screen. Really pretty well done. And then there's also a movie from 1951 directed by William Castle about the really famous and mysterious death, the murder of William Desmond Taylor. True story. It was a very, very big story for a long time. Today, that's kind of being forgotten. A little bit of Hollywood history that's slipping away from the general public, but it's a fascinating case. If you're interested in true crime and mystery, Hollywood history, really, really suggest looking into that. And I love that they use the Roosevelt Hotel. You see right across the street, the Chinese Theater.
Christmas parade passing in front of the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. This gave O'Brien a very good reason for having breakfast at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel the next morning.
Then they go over to my favorite part of Hollywood, which is the Poolside at the Roosevelt. The Tropicana bar right there. It's just, it feels, you're barely off Hollywood Boulevard, but it just feels like a whole different place. It's peaceful, it's beautiful, and really a place I love hanging out. There are so many films that have shot here. I'll just create a big list here, but I do always have to point out my favorite, one of my favorite films of all time, Almost Famous, also shot poolside there. You know who else shot poolside there? Was Marilyn Monroe. She did her first photo shoot as a blonde selling suntan lotion at that same pool. All right, I am entering into the woods right on schedule for sundown to tell some ghost stories, because I'll stick with the Roosevelt pool. One of my favorite stories comes out of the pool area, where a security guard back at their office would see on surveillance cameras that, hey, somebody's down there at the pool, it's closed, they shouldn't be out there, chase them away. That's another security guard gets dispatched to go down there. They arrive, walkie-talkie back. Well, whoever it was that was here, they must have left on their own by now, because there's nobody here anymore. Only to hear back somebody that's still watching the security monitor say, no, they're still down there, they're standing right next to you. These are apparently entities that only get picked up on infrared video. I ran a tour company in LA for a long time. Sometimes I would actually have employees of the Roosevelt on the tour, and they were able to back up that story, sometimes even saying that multiple people are seen at once on those security cameras. The Blossom Ballroom, which is the site of the first ever Academy Award ceremony, there is an ever persistent, just continual cold spot in the area where the podium stood for that first award ceremony. I do wonder if this was before the times of playing somebody off with music and somebody's still there giving their acceptance speech, maybe even just reliving one of the greatest moments of their career. Still there, relishing in that moment, that energy still making its presence known. And the place has ghost stories literally from ground floor up to the roof. In addition to the pool area, we hear stories at different levels, different floors, all the way up to the roof, where it was said that Babe Ruth would hang out in Hollywood sometimes during the off season, and he had a batting cage installed on the roof so he could stay in shape, his version of shape, and people still hear the crack of the bat. Another phantom sound still heard is Montgomery Clift, who stayed there while he was making the film From Here to Eternity. In the film, he had to play a trumpet, not something he knew how to do, so he would annoy everybody on the floor playing and practicing his trumpet, walking up and down the hallways. People still sometimes call the front desk complaining about somebody playing a horn at all hours of the night. One of the things that always resonates with me is when it comes to the Roosevelt Hotel, yes, there are ghost stories everywhere, but it really seems like they're positive. There are people still hanging out at this place because they feel like it. And I would say that, yeah, if I had the chance to come back after death, I would still want to hang out poolside at the Roosevelt. I did have also the really, really wonderful experience of being on a couple episodes of the TV show Mysteries at the Museum. And sure enough, when I was being interviewed, by coincidence, I'm getting spooked. By coincidence, the producers who were in from out of town were staying at the Roosevelt Hotel. And they said, "Do you know anything about this place being haunted?" Well, yeah, absolutely. "Have you experienced something?" "Yes." And they were staying on, I believe it was the 9th floor, the most haunted, reportedly haunted floor. And this producer said, she checked in, she was just getting settled. She went into the bathroom, came back out, and the closet door was open. And she knew she didn't open it. She thought it was odd. She closed it, went back into the bathroom, came back out. Closet door was open again, except this time now, the iron, which was placed on the shelf inside the closet, was now removed from the shelf and sitting on the bed. So we're talking about an object with some weight and some mass traveling, and not just falling over, but being placed somewhere else. I've heard lots of stories, a lot of stories that even though they're startling at times, they always end up leaving people feeling kind of welcomed there, oddly enough. So it is a place that I've really rarely had any negative stories come out of the site, but it's just a place that's full of life, full of energy, full of movie history, and a place you should definitely check out next time you're in LA. Finally, to wrap it up, I do just want to mention the Dark Matter Film Festival. They're having their first ever festival. If you're a creator, keep an eye out for when they open up for submissions again next year. Submissions are closed for season 1. I think they're off to a good start and they'll be back around. But if you want to go and support them, if you want to check out some films created by up and coming emerging talent, you can check them out down in Culver City. They're having their first ever screenings and all that down in one of my favorite parts of LA, in a place that actually I featured on just one of the most recent episodes of this last year, by the Culver Hotel, Culver Studios, all places that also have lots of ghost stories and lots of filming associated with them. So definitely check them out. I'm gonna get out of here soon, and hopefully that's not anything for me to worry about back there. Let me know if you have any guesses on what will be number 4, 3, 2, and 1 on my list of haunted filming locations around Los Angeles. Thanks for watching.